There is a place where the world goes quiet. Not a peaceful quiet, you understand, but a held breath kind of quiet. It's a place where the water isn't water, but a dark, slow mirror reflecting a canopy of moss-draped sentinels. The Florida swamps. A place of haunting, terrible beauty. On the surface, it's all postcard sunsets and the lonesome cry of a hunting bird. But you feel it, don't you? That prickle on the back of your neck. The one that has nothing to do with the humid air. You feel it the moment you push past the first cypress knee, the moment your paddle breaks the surface tension of that black water and the ripples melt away into nothing. You're not alone. Oh, you'll see the gators, sunning themselves like old, forgotten gods. You'll hear the splash of a turtle slipping from a log. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the silence that follows. The moment the insects, with their endless thrum, just stop. All at once, as if someone, or something, flipped a switch. The air itself seems to thicken, pressing in on you. And in that profound and sudden silence, you feel the weight of a gaze. It's a gaze that knows you're here. It's a gaze that's been watching you since you stepped out of your air-conditioned car. You were the sudden, noisy intruder in a cathedral of stillness. And from somewhere just beyond the line of sight, where the sawgrass blurs into the cypress shadows, eyes are on you. Patient eyes, ancient eyes. You tell yourself it's a trick of the light. A raccoon, a bird, a shadow. You rationalize the primal scream that's building in your chest, the one that's telling you to run, to get back to the open, to the sun. But you don't run, you stay, because you have to know. And in that moment, frozen between the instinct to flee and the need to see, you realize the most terrifying truth of all. You aren't watching the swamp. The swamp is watching you. And it's been waiting. The deceptive peace of the Florida swamp is its most dangerous quality, a seductive illusion that has lured the unwary for centuries. On the surface, it presents itself as a sanctuary, a place of profound and serene beauty that feels untouched by the frantic rhythm of the modern world. Imagine standing at its edge as the sun begins its slow descent. The light does not simply fade, it transforms, bleeding into 1,000 shades of amber and gold, setting the dark water ablaze with reflected fire. The cypress trees, draped in their ghostly shrouds of Spanish moss, stand like ancient, wise monarchs watching over their dominion. The air is thick with the sweet, heavy perfume of damp earth and blooming water lilies. A great blue heron stands motionless, a steady and elegant patience, and the only sound is the gentle, rhythmic lap of water against the roots of the tupelo trees. It feels like a painting. It feels like peace. And that feeling, that overwhelming sense of tranquility, is the first and most effective trap. It lulls the mind, quieting the very instincts that have kept humans alive for millennia. You breathe in the beauty, and you let your guard down. You forget that this landscape was not designed for your comfort or your contemplation. You are a guest here, and you have mistaken the cathedral for a garden. For beneath this painted serenity lies a truth far older and more complex. The swamp is not a static painting, it is a living, breathing entity, a system of sublime and brutal efficiency where every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest reptile, exists in a state of constant, vigilant awareness. The beauty you admire is the camouflage for a reality that is primal, unforgiving, and utterly indifferent to your presence. That log you mistook for a resting place. It might be an alligator, its eyes and nostrils just above the waterline, watching you with the cold patience of a predator that has survived since the time of the dinosaurs. The mud you sink into is not just earth, it is a hungry maw that can hold you fast, a slow, sucking grip that has claimed more than one careless explorer. The quiet you find so peaceful is not an absence of noise, but a suspension of it. It is the silence of a hunt. It is the held breath of every creature that has sensed a potential threat, or a potential meal. The frogs stop their chorus, the birds still their calls, and in that sudden, profound hush, the swamp is simply waiting to see what you will do. The beauty was never a lie, but it was never the whole truth. It is the mask, and what lives behind that mask, watching from the deep shadows beneath the cypress knees, has known you were there all along, long before you ever felt its gaze. The first warning the swamp offers is not a sound, but the absence of one. It begins subtly, a change so delicate that your conscious mind may not register it, even as the hair on your arms begins to stir. You have been paddling for an hour, lost in the rhythm of the dip and pull, the quiet creak of the canoe, the steady thrum of insect life that has been the constant soundtrack to your journey. Cicadas buzz their electric drone, frogs add their bass notes, and the air vibrates with the sheer, overwhelming noise of life. It is a wall of sound, white noise that your brain has learned to filter out, to ignore. And then, it stops. All of it, at once. The silence is so sudden, so complete, that it feels like a physical force, a pressure change deep in your ears. It is as if someone has placed a massive, soundproof glass dome over your entire world. The absence is so profound that you can hear the blood rushing in your own temples, the faint, internal whisper of your own breathing. This is not a natural quiet. This is a silence with intent. It is the swamp holding its breath, and in that moment, you understand with a clarity that bypasses logic entirely, every living thing within 100 yards has just become aware of you. And they are all waiting. Your paddle, which moments ago moved through the water with a pleasant swoosh, now sounds like a violent intrusion, each drip echoing like a gunshot in the dead calm. You freeze, instinctively, your body remembering lessons your mind has forgotten. And as you sit there, paralyzed by the sudden hush, the air itself begins to change. It grows heavier, thicker, pressing against your skin like a living thing. The humidity, which was merely uncomfortable, now feels like a blanket, damp and suffocating. The familiar scent of earth and vegetation is undercut by something else, something colder and older, a faint whiff of decay and wet fur and dark, hidden places where the sun never reaches. Then comes the true sensation, the one you have been dreading since you first heard stories of this place. The feeling of being watched. It is not a thought, it is a physical weight. You feel it as a pressure between your shoulder blades, a warmth on the back of your neck that has nothing to do with the sun. Your peripheral vision becomes a frantic searchlight, scanning the tree line, the shadows beneath the roots, the impenetrable wall of sawgrass. Every dark patch of water becomes a potential eye. Every cluster of moss could hide a face. Your mind, desperate for a rational explanation, offers possibilities: a deer, a raccoon, a bird. But your gut, your ancient, reptilian brain, knows the truth. A deer would have moved, would have crashed away. A bird would have called out. This gaze is still, patient, and utterly unblinking. It is studying you. It is measuring you. And you understand, with a sickening lurch in your stomach, that you cannot see what is seeing you. You are blind, and something in the deep dark is not. You carry it with you everywhere, that quiet, unspoken assumption of safety. It is the privilege of the apex predator, a confidence woven so deeply into your existence that you do not even recognize it until it is stripped away. You walk through the world as the hunter, the dominant force, the creature at the top of the chain. Every city you build, every road you pave, every light that pushes back the darkness is a declaration of your supremacy. You have forgotten what it feels like to be prey. The swamp has not. Step past the tree line, push your boat into that dark water, and you cross a threshold more significant than any border between nations. You have entered a domain where your rules do not apply, where your tools and your technology are clumsy, foreign things. That GPS in your pocket cannot read the language of the current. That knife on your belt is a toothpick compared to what waits in the depths. You are not entering a wilderness, you are entering a hierarchy, and you are doing so from the very bottom. Here, you are not the hunter. You are the variable, you are the intruder, and in the economy of the swamp, an intruder is simply an opportunity waiting to be assessed. The great alligator does not see a human being with a job, a family, and a future. It sees a warm body moving through its water, a disruption in the pattern. The panther, should it catch your scent on the wind, does not recognize your dominion over the earth. It sees another animal, noisy and uncertain, blundering through its territory. To them, you are not a person. You are meat wrapped in confusion, and you are trespassing. This is the truth that settles into your bones as the silence deepens and the weight of that unseen gaze grows heavier. You are no longer the thing that watches from a safe distance. You are the thing being watched. The shift is psychological as much as it is physical. Your mind, so accustomed to processing the world from a position of control, begins to fracture. Every shadow becomes a threat. Every rustle of leaves sends a jolt of electricity through your nerves. You start to see the swamp not as a place, but as a collection of eyes. The knots on a cypress tree become faces. The swirl of water behind your boat could be a turtle, or it could be something else, something that has decided to circle back for a closer look. You realize, with a creeping horror, that you have become hyper-aware because you are, for the first time in your life, truly vulnerable. The food chain has inverted, and you are at the bottom, staring up at the dark shapes moving in the water above you. And that is the moment the swamp truly claims you. Not when something emerges from the dark, but when you fully comprehend that you are not supposed to be here, that you are an outsider in a world that does not acknowledge your importance. The deer, the heron, the ancient cypress, they all know their place in this order. They know what to fear and what to ignore. But you, with your noisy thoughts and your fragile skin and your borrowed boat, are adrift, a trespasser in a kingdom that has never heard of your kind. You are not the hunter. You never were. You are simply here, at the mercy of something that has been watching you from the beginning, trying to decide exactly what you are. To understand the feeling of being watched, you must first understand the watcher. It has been here forever. Not in the way your grandmother's house has been here forever, or the old oak tree in the town square. No, this is a different kind of forever entirely. Before the first humans crossed the land bridge, before the great pyramids rose from the desert, before the woolly mammoth vanished from the earth, the Watcher was here. It has seen the oceans rise and fall. It has felt the ground shake and the continents shift. It has watched the stars wheel overhead for so many millennia that the constellations themselves have changed shape, and still, it remains. From its perspective, you are not a visitor. You are not an explorer. You are barely a flicker. A brief, noisy disturbance in a timeless existence that requires nothing from you and offers nothing in return. The Watcher does not hate you. Hatred is too human an emotion, too brief, too hot. It does not fear you. Fear is for creatures that have something to lose. No, the Watcher regards you with something far more terrifying than malice or fear. It regards you with patience. It has all the time in the world, because the world and time belong to it. Consider what it has witnessed. It watched the Spanish conquistadors, armored in steel and faith, push through these waters in search of gold, their desperate prayers swallowed by the silence. It watched them disappear, one by one, claimed by fever and swamp and things they could not name. It watched the runaway slaves find refuge here, building hidden communities on high ground, and it watched them too, always watching, never interfering, simply observing as they carved their small lives from the mud. It watched the Seminole warriors wage their desperate war, fading into these same cypress shadows to escape the soldiers who hunted them. And it watched the soldiers, young men from distant farms, sink into the muck with their fancy uniforms and their polished rifles, their names forgotten by everyone except the Watcher. Through all of it, the Watcher has remained. It does not age. It does not hunger in the way you understand hunger. It simply exists, and in its existence, it observes. You are to it what a mayfly is to you, here for one bright, frantic moment before vanishing back into the darkness from which you came. And yet, in that brief moment, you have its attention. You have done something to disturb the stillness, to ripple the surface of its eternal patience. Perhaps it is the noise you make, the constant, senseless chatter of your kind. Perhaps it is your smell, that sharp, chemical scent of soap and fear and processed food that clings to you like a beacon. Perhaps it is simply the novelty of your presence, a new pattern in a landscape that has known nothing but the same patterns for centuries. Whatever the reason, you are now the object of its focus. And that focus is absolute. From the deep shadows beneath the cypress knees, from the tangled heart of the sawgrass, from the black water that reflects only the sky and not what lies beneath, it watches. It notes the way you grip your paddle, the way your head turns too quickly at every sound, the way your breath comes faster as the light begins to fade. It knows you are afraid. It has seen that fear 1,000 times before, in 1,000 different faces, stretching back to the first creature who ever stumbled into this place and felt the weight of that ancient gaze. It does not pity your fear. It simply notes it, files it away, and continues to watch, patient as stone, ancient as time, waiting to see what you will do next. You are a modern creature. You carry a device in your pocket that can answer any question, light any darkness, connect you to any voice across the planet. You sleep in a box with locks on the doors and glass in the windows. You have conquered fire and flood and famine, or so you tell yourself. You have forgotten what it means to be afraid in the old way, the real way. But the swamp remembers, and when you are alone in that place, with the light failing and the silence pressing in, the swamp reaches past your modern mind and touches something far older, something that has been sleeping in your bones since before your ancestors learned to walk upright. This is primal fear. It is not the fear of a job interview or a difficult conversation. It is not the anxiety of a missed payment or a social slight. This fear is biological, ancient, and absolute. It is the fear that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah, the fear that whispered to them in the dark when the fire burned low and the night sounds changed. It is the fear of the predator you cannot see, the hunger that moves through the darkness with silent purpose, the certainty that something out there is looking for you and that when it finds you, you will not have time to scream. The swamp activates every channel of this ancient alarm system at once. The darkness is not your friendly, domesticated darkness, the kind that yields to a light switch. This darkness is absolute, a living thing that swallows light and sound and hope in equal measure. It fills your eyes with shapes that are not there, with movement at the edge of vision that vanishes the moment you try to focus. Your brain, desperate for information, begins to create it, projecting faces into knots of moss, bodies into twisted roots, eyes into every patch of black water. You know these things are not real, but knowing does not stop the fear. The fear does not answer to logic. The fear answers to something much older. And beneath the darkness, beneath the imagined shapes and the watching shadows, there is the unknown. Not the comfortable unknown of tomorrow's weather or next week's plans, but the absolute unknown, the complete absence of information that leaves your mind with nothing to do but imagine the worst. What is it that watches from the cypress knees? What waits beneath the still water? What made that sound, that wet, heavy sound that came from nowhere and everywhere at once? You have no answers, and in the absence of answers, your mind conjures horrors that no real creature could match. The unknown is not empty. The unknown is infinite, and it is filled with teeth. This is the fear that grips you in the swamp. It is the fear of the gazelle that smells lion on the wind but cannot see the grass moving. It is the fear of the rabbit that freezes at the shadow of the hawk, not knowing if the shadow will pass or fall. It is the fear of prey, pure and undiluted, and it courses through your body with a power that no rational thought can resist. Your heart pounds not because you choose it to, but because it has no choice. Your muscles tense for flight not because you have decided to run, but because your body has decided for you, overruling your conscious mind with the wisdom of 1,000,000 years of evolution. You are not yourself anymore. You are just meat, warm and frightened and terribly aware of its own fragility, and somewhere in the darkness, something knows exactly how you feel. You have felt the weight of its gaze. You have heard the silence fall like a curtain. You have understood, with a certainty that bypasses all logic, that you are not the hunter but the hunted, a trespasser in a kingdom far older than your own. You have touched that primal fear that sleeps in your bones, the fear of the dark and the unknown and the predator you cannot see. And now, as you sit frozen in your boat or stand rooted to the muddy bank, with the last light bleeding from the sky and the shadows deepening into something solid, one question rises above all others, drowning out the pounding of your heart and the rush of your breath. What does it want? This is the question that has no answer. This is the question that has haunted humanity since the first of us huddled around the first fire, staring out into the darkness beyond the flames. The watcher is real. You know this now with every fiber of your being. The pressure of its gaze is unmistakable, a physical weight that presses against your skin and stirs the tiny hairs on the back of your neck. But its purpose, its intention, its desire, these remain locked behind eyes that have watched the stars shift and the continents drift, eyes that have seen 1,000,000 humans come and go like mayflies in the evening air. Does it watch with hunger? Is that still gaze the gaze of a predator assessing its prey, calculating distance and speed and the odds of a successful strike? Does it see you as a meal, warm and vulnerable and full of soft meat? The thought is terrifying enough, the possibility of becoming nothing more than fuel for something that has existed since before your species learned to shape stone. But there is another possibility, one that chills the blood in a different way entirely. Perhaps it does not hunger. Perhaps it does not need to eat, has not needed to eat for longer than you can imagine. Perhaps its watching has another purpose entirely, one so alien to your human understanding that you could never comprehend it, not if you lived 1,000 years and studied the darkness every night. Does it watch with curiosity? Are you simply an interesting phenomenon, a brief and noisy disturbance in its eternal solitude, to be observed and catalogued and then forgotten when you pass? Does it watch with patience, waiting for something, some sign or signal that only it recognizes, some moment that has been approaching since before the first tree took root in this ancient mud? Does it watch with indifference, its gaze carrying no more weight than the gaze of a mountain or a star, aware of your presence but utterly unmoved by it? Or does it watch with something else entirely, something for which human language has no word, no concept, no point of reference? You will not find the answer. This is the terror that settles into your chest as the darkness completes its victory and the swamp becomes a world without light, without boundary, without end. You can flee from this place. You can push your boat through the black water until your arms burn and your lungs ache. You can stumble back onto solid ground, back into the world of streetlights and locked doors and the comforting illusion of safety. You can spend the rest of your life never speaking of what you felt here, never admitting to anyone, not even yourself, that for one moment in the Florida swamp, you knew you were being watched. But the question will remain, waiting for you in the dark hours of the night when sleep will not come and your mind turns, against your will, back to that place. What does it want? What does it want? What does it want? And the only answer is the silence, the same silence that fell when the insects stopped their song and the world held its breath and something in the deep shadows watched you, is still watching you, will always be watching you, waiting for you to return and finally learn the answer.